What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to Stocks by the Numbers. Today is the 30th, and right now I'm looking at a company that has earnings coming out tomorrow before the open, but I have a feeling that potentially we could have a play here working out not only in the fundamentals, but also in the technicals as well. Name of the company we're looking at, Campbell Soup Company, ticker symbol CPB, listed here on the New York Stock Exchange. Stock right now touch over 42 here at 42.08. Down 20 cents, just below 0.5% here on the day, and the stock has recently bounced off a new 52-week low here of 41.56 that happened just several days ago, about a week ago. And as you can see, we have these earnings coming out. We are looking for a touch over 50 cents on the EPS side and $2.05 billion on the revenue side. And in my opinion, it could potentially happen. As you see, the company has been bringing in over $2 billion basically for the quarter. And this was 1 year ago, and we posted 56 cents on the EPS side, basically in line with analyst expectations. Now we're only looking for 50 cents. However, revenue, as you see, about 1.98 billion. So now we're a touch over 2 billion here at 2.05 billion. So could be a little bit of a speed bump to try to get over that revenue, but I have a feeling that the profitability may potentially be more weighted in this situation than the revenue. And if we come down and we look at some of these numbers here, you can see we have a market cap of only $12.5 billion. We're paying a dividend yielding about 3.5% based on stock price here. PE touch over 16, right? But if we come down here, we can see that the company has actually been beating on the EPS side for the last 4 quarters in a row. So even with it declining, if the company is able to come in and beat that estimate, I think they're going to have a positive reaction, unless, of course, the revenue completely shits the bed. But I don't know. I think the company will probably post around $2 billion. I don't know if it'll be too much of another drop down. I mean, they did just kind of beat it up and bring it down to new 52-week lows. So, if it's a miss, I understand bringing it lower. But the question is, really how low is this thing going to go? But looking at the annual revenue, you can see going back 2018, a little 6.6 billion. Now we're up 8.1 billion. 8.7, 8.48, 8.56. So the company right now is hanging at about $8.5 billion for the year. And if we come here, that was period ending January, and here we did 2.2, and for we're probably right now probably on track for about 8.5, 8.6 billion potentially for the year. However, it looks like the later quarters in the year are when they make more of their revenue. But anyway, long story short, so we're looking at $8.5 billion for last year, right? And we have a market cap of only $12.5 billion now because they kind of beat it up a little bit. So we have a potential trade here where not only could we break out of this descending wedge and we can have a little bit of a bullish run here, but also more importantly, it's going to be viewed as undervalued in the numbers, of course, if the company comes out with a nice beat, and that's going to run it up even more, potentially all the way filling this gap here back to $50. But even in the short term, going from the low 42s here, high 41s, even back up to this fib level of about $44.78, $45 here. Obviously, that would be a great return. And again, that would probably only be an immediate reaction. In the longer term, it definitely could run up to $50+. But both short term and long term, I actually kind of like Campbell's because obviously they have a lot of brands. People need food, and also it's a cheaper product, right? Especially when you look at the old school original Campbell's condensed soup. Right, the old Campbell's condensed soup, you get your little can, right? You dump the can in, then you get a can of water, you mix it up, boom, there you go. Now you got soup. So, this is something that people make casseroles. They buy, like the cream of mushroom soup. They dump it all over it, and just bake the whole thing. And so, they're used in a lot of recipes and stuff. I know that, but also, look at all these brands. People buy the canned sauce here. Obviously, when they make their pasta, you got the Swanson frozen dinners and chicken nuggets or whatever the hell they make now. You got the chunky soups, all the V8 beverages and products, right? Something like SpaghettiOs. Kind of gross. Obviously, I haven't had it since I was like 10 years old. But at the end of the day, if you're in a pinch, if you really need something, that's what I mean. You can grab just like a cheap can of some shit, and you could be all right. Because at the end of the day, while there are other options, sometimes you just need a little variety, and you got to change it up. You can't just have something like ramen every night. But we also got our snacks here. We do some chips and pretzels, and we got the Pepperidge Farm line, Goldfish and Milano. So the company really has their hands in a lot of pies and definitely reaches out and approaches really a lot of different customers that may walk into a supermarket. So, I'm sure a higher percentage than we may think of people going into supermarkets are probably coming out with at least one or two of these products here that Campbell's has under their umbrella. But looking at Fintel here, it's showing us that only about 7.5% of the float is shorted. So this isn't necessarily like a short squeeze play or anything like that, even though I'm sure there are potentially a bunch of shorts in here now who are just riding this wave down, just presuming that the company is going to post a quarter and numbers are going to be a little rocky and mixed, and they're just going to be able to chunk it down to 40 or 39 and make new lows and just make themselves a quick trade. But in the numbers, really, again, undervalued, really. Even with the company paying a dividend here. I mean, again, we have a PE of 16 and we're trading about 1.5 times annual revenue. Should it get back up to these highs of $55, $58, $60? I don't know about that. However, if they report a decent quarter with the descending wedge lining up, I could definitely see 45, 46 in the short term, no problem. And again, in the long term, in my opinion, this would actually be a position that I would add to, especially down here with the sell-offs. If you can get into this company here, 1.5, even potentially 2 times annual revenue, in my eyes, that's actually undervalued, especially since they're paying you to own it and the PE is so low. So down here in the 42s here, I would be, adding to the position in the long-term portfolio and just consistently reinvesting those dividends and just adding to it when it has any of these dips here. Even if you back out over the years here, see going into 2019 here before they started to turn it around, you can see, the stock down here in the mid-30s, low 30s. Like, that's what I mean. Something like that. When you see a company like this with a brand name like Campbell's and you see them really getting beaten up and selling off and coming down to these lows, that's when you have to step in and take the position to ride it out for the long run. And now you see here, you turn around, obviously, it took whatever, a year and a half, but now you see, you can turn around, you get in at 35, you can get out at 55 if you don't want to hold it, and the whole time they were paying you to own it, and now you have more shares than you started with. So, that's why we talk about compound investing, but of course, that's more for the long-term portfolio, and, if you're watching a lot of the YouTube finance people, chances are, not to make assumptions, but chances are you probably have, a couple of thousand or maybe, tens of thousands, and you're just looking to just grow that real quick into, from 4 to 5 figures or from 5 to 6 figures. And I can respect it. And either way, you could have, again, a short-term play here. I just don't know, how confident you can be, because technically it is an earnings report, which we know is a complete dice roll, 50-50 shot. And again, you can step in, you can buy some calls, and then the company could come out and, they can miss on the top and bottom line, or, they can announce that next quarter is going to be even worse than this quarter, or just some dumb shit like that. And obviously, the stock is going to take a hit. But as you see here, coming out Thursday morning, and again, this is not concrete evidence, but if you go over to Earnings Whisper, you can see that supposedly the whisper is about 54 cents a share that they're going to report on that 50 cents. And this is what I was talking about when I talk about the profitability, because again, if we come back to these EPS numbers, you can see how they've been slipping down, right, quarter over quarter. And basically, it's all of the costs of goods sold and the operating costs, all of these that have been increasing for so many of these companies that have potentially just gone up even slightly more than what the company has projected. Then that stock takes massive hits. We see what happened with something like PayPal. The stock went from 75 all the way down to new lows there of sub 60, I believe, at one point. And it's all because I believe it was the operating margin came in at 21.4% as opposed to 22%, right? Think about that. 0.6% miss and the stock hits new lows and drops, 20% real quick in value. So that's why it really could get out of hand in a hurry if the company does report light. However, if this earnings whisper is potentially on track here, then we may obviously see a nice beat on the profitability side there on the EPS side. Of course, earnings per share, that's what that stands for. And the revenue here, supposedly $2.07 billion. And the company, 2.056 billion, right? So this is what I'm saying. If a company like this that has been beaten up, that was chilling at 50, mid 50, now it's down here low 40s, just hit a new 52-week low, and we're in a descending wedge, and they're potentially about to come out and beat on the EPS side and on the revenue side, then yes, I am fairly confident that we're probably going to see a pop here going into tomorrow morning, and that's why I'm making the video here. Midday, still got some time left, and of course you could buy shares after hours or pre-market as well if you want, but Campbell's here, CPB, I think it may potentially be ready to make a move. And again, long-term overall, personally, in my opinion, I still do think it's undervalued in the numbers. So even if you get in here and let's just say the stock drops, another 4 or 5% and it dips down to 40 and a half or whatever the heck, obviously in the longer term, it's really not going to make that much of a difference. But like we always say, if we like it at 42, 44, 45, we're going to love it at 41, 40, 38, if they bring it down that low. So, definitely a company here that, well, let's just say that there are worse companies to buy, right? And if we look here on stock charts, you can see the RSI very, very low here, all the way down at 33 3/4 here. And you can see the MACD has actually recently just crossed. That's why I'm saying here, we're coming out of this wedge. We have earnings here. Supposedly the earnings are going to be good. That's why a pop-up here, 44.68 back to the moving average. That's a layup here, in my opinion. In my opinion, that's a layup. And obviously the RSI is going to start climbing, the MACD crossing, and it's just going to get even better. Look at the weekly here. Look at the RSI in the weekly. 25.6 right now. I mean, look at the MACD completely in the crap. That's what I mean. Like, the stock is due, in my opinion. It's due for a little bit of a pop here, a little bit of positivity. And you can see this 200-day moving average, 45.29, which again is slightly above that 44 3/4 that we had on the daily. So that's why 45 back to about 45 and change, in my opinion, I do think it's very feasible. I really do. 44.68 ran the man, and then we come back here and we see 45.29, and then we come back here and we see fib level on the 1 year 44.78, right? So that's why, in my opinion, you're potentially going to see like an immediate 4 or 5% pop here. And then, of course, after that, if it was a good report, it's going to slowly climb back up, back into the high 40s, and potentially get back even to 50 before going into the next quarter, which, of course, is going to be towards the end of the year in like November. But overall, yeah, Campbell Soup, brand name stock that I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. And again, we have the ability to potentially buy it at a pretty decent discount here in the numbers, and just bouncing off a 52-week low, and supposedly, potentially, according to Earnings Whisper, going to report a good quarter here. So we're going to have numbers, we're going to have technicals lining up, all giving us a potential run and a potential pop here. And again, overall, like the company, brand name stock, not expensive here, and they pay you a dividend to own it, so it's good for the long term also. But I'm going to end it there. So once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I'm going to thank you guys for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually very quick to reply. Like the video, thumbs up, algorithm, share the video. Helps me get more eyes on the channel. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. That is our handshake agreement. I will, put out videos when I can. I'll do update videos on any stocks you guys might be watching. If you want, you can come into Discord link in the description of every video, and if you guys want to talk about the market, if I potentially see anything in the short term, any little scalp trades or day trades, I'll try to call them out in the Discord for you, and I will do all of that for you guys. All I ask, handshake agreement. If you're going to take advantage of all that, do me a favor, push the subscribe button. That is how you help me help you. But moving forward, more importantly, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky and they're volatile and they are very uncertain. So I want to wish everyone success. Hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. I want you guys to stay sharp, stay focused, stay positive. Thanks for stopping by. Catch you in the next one.